Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for watching my video. Today we're going to talk about something that's been on my mind for a little while. I'm not really going to commentary on what I'm doing in the game. So recently I've been watching Star Trek Next Generation and Voyager, and in Star Trek Next Generation Season 4, Episode 22, which is called Half a Life, this episode is about a world where their sun is dying. It's got about 30 to 40 years left in its life. And there's a scientist that is working on the process of rejuvenating their sun. He's been studying it, and he boards the Enterprise to try out his prototype. As part of what he is experimenting with, he makes a comment after boarding the Enterprise that he's excited to see his life's work tested before he dies. So they get to the planet where they're going to test his prototype, and the test fails. The star that they were trying it out on basically blows up, which wasn't good, and he gets really depressed and reveals that in 4 days' time he's turning 60 years old. The culture of his planet, which has been doing this practice, which I will tell in a minute, has been doing it for thousands of years. It is what is politically correct, religiously correct, and socially correct. What happens when a person turns 60 is they perform what they call the reclamation. It's where you celebrate your life with your friends and family, and after that celebration, you are obligated to commit suicide. The reason for them doing this is because people in their society or their race who got older would eventually lose their ability to think, lose control of their faculties, much like elderly people do in our society. And instead of putting them in homes, they figured, let's have them commit the suicide so that they can be remembered being healthy and at their, in their prime. And, I can understand that. Sometimes you don't want to have the memories of somebody that isn't in their right faculties. I had a grandfather who, when I was in 7th grade or 8th grade, he started to not be able to remember words. And by the time he died, he couldn't speak. He had been bedridden for many, many years. We weren't even sure he recognized us, his grandchildren, my father, and, his wife anymore. Like, we because he couldn't talk. He'd just sit there and stare at you. And I can understand that, but at the same time, I'm glad that I was able to spend time with my grandfather before he finally passed away, even though he was an invalid and couldn't take care of himself. Going back to this episode of Star Trek, the scientist realizes that from the sensor data, he has more to contribute to his society. And he decides to ask Jean-Luc Picard, the captain of the Enterprise, for an asylum so that he could continue his work, because his planet, his people, just automatically expected him to follow their traditions. He expresses to his government, and the government cut him off, basically saying, you're not going to follow this, we're not going to accept your research anymore. They even launched ships to attack the Enterprise if they didn't get him back. Now, there wasn't a armed conflict with the Enterprise, and eventually, after talking to his daughter, he decides to return to his world and go through with the reclamation. So this made me think of, in my mind, suicide is wrong. Just, it's inherently wrong. You shouldn't end your life for almost any reason. I know some people will disagree, and that's okay. There's circumstances where you may have a terminal disease and you would rather die on your terms than on the disease's terms. I don't agree with that being, suicide in that case being right, but that is up to the person, the individual. Now, my issue with what this episode brought up is that it was dictated that committing suicide was what was religiously, socially correct. Politically correct. But in my mind, suicide is morally wrong. And it made me think, should what is politically correct dictate what is morally correct? And in my opinion, it's not. It shouldn't. There's lots of, in my mind, what is politically correct is kind of whatever's popular at the time. A couple of years ago, there was somebody who saw a video of a turtle choking on a plastic straw, and this person decided that she needed to start a campaign against plastic straws because of this video that she saw. And while she had good intentions with her campaign, my opinion is she was kind of going about it wrong. Instead of saying, hey, we need to ban straws, we should have said, hey, we need to be more conscientious of our garbage and making sure we throw away things that need to be thrown away and recycle things that need to be recycled, like plastic straws, depending on the type of plastic, in my mind, should be recycled. But at the time, especially here in the US, there was this big debate and battle about using straws and how it was politically wrong to use them. But there are people in the world who need those straws to drink, like elderly people who can't lift a glass all the way to their mouth. They need plastic straws to be able to drink. One other thing that comes to mind is, it's possible that what is politically correct could very much lead to things that are morally incorrect. Morally incorrect. So I'm going to go back and talk about committing suicide at the age of 60. Now, my one grandparent that lived long enough for when I got married, she also lived long enough to be able to hold my son. None of my other grandparents lived long enough to be able to do that. Had we had the system that this alien race had, I probably, she would have never been able to attend my wedding. never been able to hold my son after he got out of the hospital. I have a picture of this grandmother with me, my father, and my son. That's, 4 generations together. My own parents are now over the age of 60, and they would have never been able to meet my niece that was born within the last year. I think even within the last 6 months of when this video is being recorded. And that's just, in my mind, that's really sad that they wouldn't have the chance to know that granddaughter, or the granddaughter even knowing her. Currently, my dad tries to read with my two oldest nephews over a Zoom meeting, just to help encourage them to read. They pick a book and they read it together. And without my dad being willing to do that, one of my nephews probably wouldn't even try to read on his own. He's not that, he's more into sports than doing academic things. And I think it's really important that they have that time together and bond. My parents really like to video chat with their grandchildren because it helps them bond with them, helps get to know them. And I think that's really important. And if we had the tradition where, oh, hey, you're 60 years old, well, time for you to say goodbye, they wouldn't have that relationship. I talked about my grandpa, who was an invalid for many, many years of his life. And while that's not the best memories of him, I'm still glad I got to spend time with him when he was sick like that. It allowed me to continue to build a relationship, have memories of him, and be a part of his life. I really appreciate the fact that I did get to know my grandparents before they passed away. But that wouldn't have been the case if we had had a system like the one portrayed in that Star Trek episode. And I realize that a lot of people may or may not agree with me on what I've said in this, and that's perfectly okay. This is just my opinion on the subject. And, if you disagree, that's all right. In fact, if you disagree, please leave a comment saying what your opinion is on the subject. Just don't be a hater. I respect your opinions, and I hope that you respect mine, and I hope that we could have a discussion on your opinion rather than, hey, your opinion's dumb. That's not right. That's not respectful. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great day.